First of all, I'd like to recognize the other board members of BLAEDC. So any board members that are in the room, if you could stand up, please. Great, thank you all. And then in addition to that, tradition at the annual meeting, I'd like to call past board chair Mike up and present him with a plaque for his service over the 2022 year, being our previous leader, and certainly a great person to follow. And things in good shape, and appreciate everything you've done this past year. Honored to serve with you, Mike. Thanks, Jim. Thank you. All right, so today we've got a couple of different speakers lined up. We're going to start with an update from Crow Wing County to get updated on the happenings there. And then we're going to hear from the Executive Director of BLAEDC. And then last, we'll have our featured presentation with Dr. Hara Charlier from Central Lakes College to give an update on the state of higher education and how we as business leaders can connect with them and drive some workforce issues within higher education and our business leaders. So with that, we'll introduce and bring up Rosemary Franzine from Crow Wing County, and will give us an update on what's going on with the county.
Well, good morning, and thank you for coming this morning, and thank you for giving me a few minutes to update you on what's going on in Crow Wing County. There's an old saying, may you live in interesting times. To say the least, the last few years have been interesting, and that's an understatement. And I would rather not live through it again. But I don't want to talk about the pandemic. I think we're all tired of talking about that. But I do want to talk to you about how we use the federal and state dollars we receive for economic recovery post-pandemic. Crow Wing County received over $20 million in economic recovery funds. This is both an unprecedented amount, and it could be used for a whole host of things related to economic recovery, but normal county funds can't be used for it. The first thing we did with funds we received was to open a grant program for area businesses that were shuttered by the pandemic. At one point in the very early days when so many of us were shut down, we probably had 25% unemployment within the county. Then things started to settle down and more businesses were slowly allowed to reopen. We wanted to target a grant program to those small businesses, most of whom were mom and pop shops that were hurt the worst. We assisted hundreds of businesses with these grants that we hope helped to minimize the number of businesses that were forced out of business. The second thing we did was to ask an important question. What are the long-term limits on economic growth in our county? That exercise produced three priorities: daycare availability, broadband availability, and housing. I doubt if any of these are a surprise to you. Given these priorities, we also invested significantly in the expansion of broadband services to unserved and underserved areas within our county. We have certainly seen how more people have moved here and brought them jobs with them to be performed virtually. People need high-speed internet to do that. Sadly, there is still much work to do in that arena, and we are hopeful that additional federal and state funds can be brought to bear to help close remaining service gaps until we are all high-speed internet. There are 26,000 households in Brainerd County, and after these efforts, we have all but 4,000 covered with internet services. Long-term as a community, we need to keep closing that gap. We are also invested in the expansion of available daycare slots. In fact, we recently closed a second round of accepting applications from anyone who would work to expand an existing daycare or start a new one. We stayed up with funding for construction. and the like, and we simply funded the increased capacity when someone would show us that they had been licensed for before and show proof of the license for more capacity. Crow County is also investing in workforce housing within our local community through a housing trust fund set up by the county's Housing and Redevelopment Authority, or HRA. We are letting funds for gap financing and seed money to help expand workforce housing options available within the county. We are also leveraging these funds for other grants and working with banks and developers to put projects together. This one is a tough one. Housing is expensive to provide, and we're not going to make rapid progress here, but we're pushing the needle as far as our resources will allow. The fix for this one will be longer term. You may notice that none of those priorities reflect any funds going to cover our own costs associated with the pandemic, which were legion. The last thing we recently did, just about a month ago, is agree to fund covering our own costs associated with the pandemic. We had purchased supplies and tried a couple of pilot programs, but for the most part, we funded others first. This reflects our philosophy as leaders to eat last. It was more important to our community to pay attention to the pain points that they were experiencing first, not the ones we were experiencing. I'm very proud of my fellow board members for agreeing to take care of others first. Beyond that, I want you to know that Crow County has successfully weathered the pandemic, and we are largely back to normal. We still have a hard time getting vehicles as supply chain issues for semiconductors remains an issue. Beyond that, however, we are back to what we were pre-pandemic. Finally, I just want to thank all of you for what you did to get through these last couple of years. I think it's fair to say that it was one of the most challenging times to be in business, and there was no more important time for the community meeting you than these past couple of years. Providing jobs when they were scarce, providing essential goods and services to keep our economy rolling. We can see how much economic activity there was during the pandemic, and it was clear to us that we folks had to work extraordinarily hard to maintain the level of economic activity we were able to maintain despite the pandemic. Kudos to you for what you do to make this the great community we all know it to be. Thank you for the time today and for your good work every day.
Thank you, Rosemary. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tyler Glenn. I'm the Executive Director of BLAEDC, and thank you all for coming this morning. It's great to see such a big audience at a morning meeting a couple years ago when Mike had this idea of changing this meeting to a morning meeting. You know, it was like, well, can we do this? Should we do this? The years passed for some faces in the room that I know have been to our board meeting or our annual meetings previously. It was a lunch meeting, and what we would do is, you know, serve a quick lunch, and usually have some speaker that was either talking numbers or talking things that were probably fairly boring to most people. And you'd start to see some heads nod, and you know, it's like, oh, we got a really big lunch, and now we're listening to somebody spew out Federal Reserve numbers to us. So we thought maybe moving it to the morning would help just to keep people awake. So there's still coffee left. There's certainly some food I think that's still left, but thank you all really for coming. Rosemary jumped in front of me this morning because they have a budget meeting at 9 a.m. and we wanted to make sure that she got to that. I asked her if she just wanted to come up and talk about roundabouts. She failed and said, no, I think we'll talk about some other things, but we really value the partnership that we have with Crow County. We're very fortunate to be relied on from the county's perspective for helping them with these grants that Rosemary talked about this morning. I know that since the start of the pandemic, the county has been responsible for getting out over $10 million in economic assistance grants, child care grants, funding for broadband. So their grant programs have been administered by us at BLAEDC, and we're very fortunate to have that partnership with them and the relationship that we have. In fact, this last round that Rosemary spoke of, this child care assistance grants that we just closed on May 3rd, we had 30 days to have that grant open and ended up with 37 grant applications for just over $4 million requested. So we'll see how the county handles that. We didn't have that much money in this pool, but so we'll see how they deal with that in the next couple of weeks as we get this out. But it was nice because Tim Poole made one phone call and just said, "Tyler, can you guys do this again?" And I looked at Allison and said, "Allison, can we do this again?" So we did, and very fortunate to continue to work with them. So we're really happy about that. So I just want to do a couple of things this morning, and then I'll yield the floor to Dr. Charlier so she can talk about all of the wonderful things that are happening at CLC and certainly throughout our region. But I want to introduce our staff. As you probably noticed when you walked in, we have a new staff member. But I'll introduce Mike Beardness. Mike runs our recruitment program. For all of you that have been following the recruitment program, especially our board, I'm really happy that Mike can keep standing up. So the amount of work that he does and that he has done, especially last year, I think that when they designed that program 6+ years ago, Mike, it was something that, let's get this going. We want to help our businesses recruit and attract key talent. I don't think they envisioned that it would be what it is today. So we're very, very fortunate. At the end of 2022, Mike successfully hired his 75th person in that program. And we've got, his pipeline is full. Ardell, where's Ardell? Yeah, his pipeline is full. We just got to make sure Ardell doesn't hire him. So, but no, it's fantastic. And as I said in years past, groups try to copy this program, and we'll give them everything they want to know about this program, but they don't have Mike. So we're just lucky. Thank you, Mike. Allison Medic, and Allison is our Special Initiatives Director. Last year, after Megan Raidline decided that it was time to stay home with her kids after having baby number 2, I kind of looked at Allison and said, "How are we going to pull this off without Megan in the office?" So she's really stepped up and helped out tremendously. We've got a lot of things going. We're extremely busy, but the work that Allison does is second to none. So thank you very much. And lastly, we have Haley Dalzell. Haley has joined us as our marketing manager. Welcome, Haley. Haley stepped right in and is doing fantastic work right out of the gate. We talked about the things that where we can impact, and as we changed our brand last year, it was, the board's directive along with the staff's directive is to say, how can we take this brand that we spent a lot of effort, and money on to get this brand to where we want it, and that is using social media, and it's using our marketing dollars. And to be able to do that stuff, we needed somebody that's 23 years old. No offense to Mike, Allison, and myself. I don't think in that space the way Haley does. And if you've started to notice more posts, more activity on our social media, for those of you that follow us, that is Haley doing a tremendous job at getting that up and running. She is going to be visiting a lot of you. She's already reached out to our board members. She wants to go out and see the businesses that our board members run, but then she's also going to reach out to others to come and see your businesses, to understand what we're doing. She's going to take pictures, so don't freak out. She's going to take pictures. And it's just a great opportunity for us to get Haley acclimated with the community, but also an opportunity for us to continue to broaden the things that we're talking about and the things that we're supporting. So it's exciting for us, and I really want to welcome Haley to our group, and I'm so glad she's here. So one of the last things that I'm going to touch on before I turn over the floor is that, well, 2 things. One is that what you see behind us. So the board a couple years ago asked us to try and give an elevator speech, if you will. An elevator speech so that when they're talking and people are asking them, what it is that we do and why we do what we do, there's a way that we can put this out there to say, here's really what it is. Here's the work that we do in a nutshell. And the group that helped us rebrand our organization, Pivot, they gave us some talking points and we started to put some things together. We brought it in front of the board and asked them to look through this and say, is this right? Is this what we do? Is this easy for you guys to say, here's the work that BLAEDC does? Is it easy for staff to do that? So condensing it down into what we have here, we really think is a good start. It's a place where we can talk about the things that we do. It's a place that we can engage with individuals, business owners, our community leaders, and have this conversation around the work that we do. Every couple of years, most of the communities that support us in Crow Wing County have new council members, have new mayors, we have new county commissioners, we have new leaders all across the board. We want to be able to take a statement like this and say, this is what we do, and this is why we do it. Hopefully this resonates with all of you. You're going to start seeing it a lot more, and we're proud of our board for taking the time to review it and understand and say, this is what makes sense to us. So that's why this is here, and why we'll continue to talk about this moving forward. A couple people I want to recognize. Yeah, Katie, you. So Katie Hafner. Katie is the new director of the SVDC, the North Central. Katie is a former colleague that's worked in this economic development space, was in Wadena County, and at the start of 2023 took over as the new director of the SVDC. As you know, BLAEDC is a satellite location for the SVDC, so we start to get some phone calls and we get a lot of requests from Katie to talk to clients and deal with clients, and both Allison and I work in that space, and we're thrilled that we do, but we have a great relationship with the SBDC. We're really happy that that's part of the work that we can continue to do, so we're pleased with that. Next is, I have to mention and shout out to Mike Larson, and there's Mike. So Mike served on the BLAEDC board for 6 years, I believe, 2 terms, and he yielded his seat at the end of 2022. Mike is a former board president for us as well. He is going to retire. I assume that's still the plan. So he's going to retire at the end of June this year from Essentia Health. So I'm so glad he's here today, and thank you, Mike, for everything you've done for our board. And he gracefully handed us a name for our newest board member, and that is Sandy Zuzwiecek. And Sandy is also at Essentia Health. And so Mike said, hey, I think I've got a really good replacement for me. So, and he was right. And Sandy's new to our board, and obviously as you start getting acclimated in the things that we do, we're always here to help guide that as well. So thank you, Mike, and welcome, Sandy, and Katie, welcome as well. So lastly, we've got a lot of great partners in the room. I'm so thankful for all of you and the support that you provide to us. We've got a lot of work in front of us. We'll continue to do it. We've got great partners. Eric Charpentier with the HRA. We're doing a lot of good things, hopefully, to address our housing problems in and around this area. Our partnership with the Initiative Foundation. Don is here today, so it's great that Don's here. We've administered their Main Street revitalization grant for the downtown Brainerd, $750,000, $765,000, somewhere in that ballpark. To help a lot of the businesses in that corridor. It was a very specific grant, if you will, from Minnesota Deed that came down and filtered funds out to the Initiative Foundations, and then Don came to us and asked us if we would help them and partner with them to get these funds out in downtown Brainerd, and we're working through it, and I think we're doing okay. So it's been a good process. I think there's going to be some great projects that are going to occur in downtown Brainerd to keep that moving forward. So excited about that, and I have Jenny Smith here. Jenny is one of my board members from our CREDI board. So CREDI is our Canyon Range Economic Development Organization, and Jenny's been a stalwart on that board, and she's been there for a number of years. We took over that arrangement 15 years ago, I believe, so we administer that. We're the administrative partner for that board as well. great to see Matt Killian here. Matt and I will really try and, even though we're in the same space, we try to get along, but we partner on some good things, and you know, it's to get the word out on projects and things that are going on, using the force of the chamber and using the force of BLAEDC. We feel like we can really reach a broad audience and get information out. We've had some interesting meetings with this 210 project that's going to occur in a couple of years, trying to get all of the businesses in Brainerd and Baxter in the same room and talk about how the 210 project is going to impact them. We're going to be working on things and communicating with those businesses over the next couple of years as that project continues to move forward. So happy that we're able to do those things, and we've got a great partnership there. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my colleague in Cass County, Mike Paulus. So Mike is here to obviously support us. Mike brings me to a few of his meetings. You know, we get invited to their annual meeting every year as well. But great working relationship. I don't think a lot of people understand that our work doesn't really stop at the border. You know, there isn't a barrier out there that says, oh, I can't go into, you know, southern Cass County and help somebody do something. And Mike can't come into northern Crow Wing County and help somebody do something. That's what these partnerships are all about. And I'm really fortunate to have a colleague like Mike that is in that border, right by that border, and very close to us. So, all right. One of the things that I got told a couple of years ago was it's time for me to stop talking. So, with that being said, I want to take this opportunity to welcome our 2023 keynote speaker, Dr. Hara Charlier. And Hara is the president of Central Lakes College, so we're honored to have Hara join us today to talk about the current state of higher education and how it relates to our local communities and businesses. So we're thrilled that she has taken the time to join us today. We've had a staff, we've had a couple of meetings with Hara, and we're going to be excited about what she brings to the table as far as the conversations around education in our community. So I believe this summer Hara is going to be celebrating her 7th year here at CLC. So very, very fortunate to have Hara join us today. So if you'll all join me in welcoming Dr. Hara Charlier.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really hard to believe that I've been here for 7 years. It's a bizarre thing. But I'll tell you, we've lived in a number of rural communities in 6 different states. They've all been wonderful places. But there are some very different things about this community, and it's really all of you. There's no question about it. This community comes together in a way that I've never seen before. And the success of this institution that we'll talk about today is really your success. When we talk about the partnerships that Tyler talked about with the county, and we've got Crow Wing and Cass and all of our business partners in the chamber and BLAEDC, that is what makes the work at Central Lakes College even possible. And even my children, who have lived in communities with a number of community colleges, you know, kids are very observant, but they're not really kids. I mean, they're 26 and 23, so they're not. But they're very observant. So they said, as soon as we got here, Mom, it feels different here. It feels like this community really supports the college. I've never seen that before. So thank you for that work. Please know that doesn't happen everywhere. It happens here in a really special way. So thank you for having me. I'm hoping that this can be a dialogue. Kevin Thiesing already told me that I need to wrap it up because he's got a place to go. I can't remember where are you, Kevin? I'm going to work on it. He's gone. Wow, okay. So please feel free to interrupt, ask questions. I'm just really excited to be here, so thank you. So I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about the state of higher education and kind of where we are, there we go, in our local workforce. And I thought in order to talk about the state of higher education, we start with a little history. Don't worry, very brief, like lightning round history of higher education, because it is kind of a beast, to be honest. And look at some of the challenges that are facing higher education, and they are huge. They truly are significant. Then talk about CLC and the work we're doing and why some of that's working. It's largely due to you. And then why I really do believe that higher education, including CLC, is at an inflection point. We are going to be asked to change, and it's already happened very, very quickly, and it will be incredibly hard work that we just have to do because all of us are here to make sure our communities are strong, are vital, are better. And that doesn't happen when we end up just digging our heels in and doing things the same way. So we are in for a ride, but I'm so glad we're doing it together. Okay, so quick history of higher ed. So these are the institutions of higher education in the United States. There are nearly 4,000 of them, which is significant. What is obvious is that it's a kind of a beast. What is not obvious is that these institutions came about at various inflection points in history. There were needs that the country had, and higher education responded by changing. We're about to change again. So for example, in the early 16 and 1700s, the first colleges were the colonial colleges. And they were created, there are 9 of them. You know them, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. They were created to train clergy for the new colonies. So they were for the elite, training clergy. That was the point, and it worked really well. And at that time, there were also some private institutions as population grew to help make sure that clergy were available across the population. And that's really where things were for quite some time. It wasn't until the late 1700s that needs in the community again required that higher education pivot. And that is because as the population grew, they needed doctors and lawyers. Well, there were no institutions, so the first law schools and medical schools are in the late 1700s. In fact, the first law school was in someone's living room, which is, let's not tell my colleagues that we can do that out of our living rooms, but that's true. So in the late 1700s, still training the elite of the world to be doctors, lawyers, clergy. It really wasn't until about the mid-1800s when the idea of public education changed. The country was becoming much more dependent on agriculture. We had started the industrial era, and by the beginning of the Civil War, there were over 130,000 factories in the country, and nobody was trained to do this work. So the federal government passed the Morrill Act in 1862, which granted federal land to states, 30,000 acres of federally owned land, and said, you can have this, you can sell it, or you can develop it, but you have to put a college on it that focuses on agriculture and what they called then the mechanical arts. So things like engineering, and again, higher education pivoted, and in Minnesota, our land grant is the University of Minnesota. When you look across all states, you'll see that land grant in most states is focused largely on agriculture, or there's a significant presence in agriculture. So we changed that. Then it wasn't about the elite. It was about making sure that the public had access to education. And then if you flash forward again, around World War II, when all the servicemen were coming back from the war, there were about 8 million that were coming back and had to reacclimate into society. Very few ways to do that. Thus, there was yet another bill, the GI Bill, you know this one, that allowed all servicemen to go to college for free. And while community colleges, surprisingly, I haven't mentioned them yet, have been around since the early 1900s, there weren't a lot of them until the GI Bill, because now the demand was there. Obviously, people had to have close access. We did not do online learning. So over 1,000 community colleges now exist in the country, largely because of a need and funding that came with it. So that's mid-1900s. Late 1900s, a little thing called the internet happened. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but it did happen. And that changed how we did things. It opened the door to online learning, and it opened the door to for-profit institutions that continue to change higher education, in some ways positive, in some ways negative. So when we look at all these dots, they were all there for a reason. There's a lot of conversation about whether we need all these dots now because the world is different. I can tell you we need one in central Minnesota called Central Lakes College, there's no question about that. But there is a lot of conversation about consolidation and how higher education has to adapt going forward. So as all of these institutions grew, so did enrollment. And this graph only shows you from 1970 on 2020 on the right. And you can see that the slope of enrollment growth was tremendous. The top red line is total enrollment. Near it is undergraduate enrollment. And then near the bottom is graduate enrollment. So a huge incline in enrollment. And it peaked in about 2010 nationally. And that makes sense because we had a recession in 2008, 2009. And what typically happens, people can't get jobs, so they go back to school. This exact same thing happened at Central Lakes College. 2011, our enrollment peaked. Everybody geared up. They hired, they grew, they built, and then slowly but surely enrollment has been on the decline. It looks like a fairly shallow decline in this particular graph, and it is, but when you're talking about millions of students, it's very significant. And it foreshadows some of the challenges that higher education has faced. We could probably talk about any of these for like 30 minutes each, maybe longer. So enrollment decline clearly has been a problem. Since 2020, that has continued, and we've lost as a country another 10% of enrollment through 2020 and 2023. I don't think for all bad reasons. I mean, these are some of the variables that contribute to it, but students are starting to really ask what I believe to be the right question. What is the return on my investment? What is the job that I'm looking for? And how do I get there? Is it worth that investment? And that is the question that we believe every student should ask, but it's not been the case historically. When I went to college, this is when I don't make myself look very good, in upstate New York, it took me 5 different schools to get my bachelor's degree. Yep, 5. It's amazing that I actually have a degree. It's not amazing that it's totally worthless. So at the time, I have a degree in animal science. I don't do artificial insemination. I'm not a vet. It was not useful. But at that time, because I'm a little aged, it was enough to get me a job. And that used to be the case, that a degree got you a job. That is not the case anymore, and all of you know that. So community colleges have always known that, but there are sectors of higher education that are still moving in that direction. So some of this enrollment decline is people making really good choices. And as wages have gone up in our communities, that choice becomes harder. So I understand that, certainly. The other thing that feeds into this is rising cost. We know that all over the news. It's the way it is. And it is absolutely true. This teensy little graph shows you just some slopes. On the far bottom line, I don't know if this will work. Yeah, right here. This is 2-year public, so community colleges. This one is 4-year privates. You can certainly see that the cost of education has far, far outpaced anything considered inflation. So the question is really why? Well, depends on who writes the article. Some will tell you it's bloated administrative costs, which may be true in some colleges, but I can assure you and prove to you it's not Central Lakes College. There is the fact, however, that as enrollment has become more and more challenging, and particularly 4-year institutions compete for students. Have any of you taken a student on a college tour lately? Mike, what did they show you?
All the nice new buildings.
Nice new buildings, right? Cafeterias, climbing walls, fitness complexes. So the way many institutions are attracting students is really to just appeal to them in ways that they never have had to before. So that is part of the rising cost of education. We don't have that climbing wall. I like climbing wall, but we don't have that. So that's part of the rising cost. I think part of the rising cost is also often thought to be the very easily accessible aid to students. Aid is great. Many of our students need aid, but it's incredibly easy to access. And our students who have not, if some of them have not quite gotten to that return on investment calculation that I talked about, they're different, right? I have 2 children. One has spreadsheets. You know where that. Another one, no, there are no spreadsheets involved. Don't apply by the paper pants. I think she's kind of the way I was at the 4-year institution. But that the easy access to dollars without really having to think about the implications has contributed, I think, to some of our challenges. And then finally, student debt is incredibly high. Average student debt now is $37,000 a year. I can give you the names, but I won't. and they don't go to CLC. Of 2 students, one who has 0, I know a student who has $250,000 in debt. So it's everywhere across the board, and it is something that we absolutely have to deal with. All of these things, of course, contribute to lots of questions about the perception of the value of college. And this is a tough one for community colleges because we buck most of these trends. We keep our costs low, we're all about affordability, access, completion, no big climbing walls. I'm gonna really get in trouble if we build a climbing wall. But yet, when you think college, that's all of higher education. So this question of value is deeply concerning to us. But across the country, a lot of people are asking, and they should, is it worth the return on investment? And this conversation, many have said, is done. We're done with it. No, we are not done with it. I do believe community colleges are positioned very well because we have always been about value and return on investment. But I think this conversation will continue for a long, long time. So even though we have plenty of challenges, we're also even more important than ever, which is a weird dichotomy. When you look at the jobs across the nation, we know that about 70% requires something more than a high school diploma. So you need higher education, there's no question about it. But when you think back to that perception of college, a lot of people, my mom is one of them, despite my career and many conversations, who still thinks college is a 4-year degree. She's a wonderful woman. Even though 70% of jobs require higher education, it does not mean that everyone requires a 4-year degree. And we're not anti, please know that. I mean, if the job you're looking for requires that degree and that pathway, by all means. But we don't believe that students should just default that way. And to show you that, this is the ratio that is fairly widely accepted nationally of the types of degrees and awards that are necessary in the country. 1 to 7. So for every 1 graduate degree needed in our community, 2 require a bachelor's degree, but 7 require something, an associate's degree or less. So a certificate, a diploma. And this, of course, is the world of community colleges. So it's not enough just to say higher education is facing challenges, we don't need it anymore. It's really, what does higher education mean? What does it provide? You ask anybody at CLC, they will tell you that for us, higher education means our meat cutting certificate, it means our comp tech certifications, it means an associate's degree that you will transfer, and we love that, but we want you to have a goal in mind. So 1 to 7, we are more important than ever before. So I want to spend just a few minutes talking about locally, and again, please interrupt, because this is a conversation that is all of ours. This ratio holds true right here, and it's certainly true that the vast majority of jobs in our area do not require a bachelor's degree. So we looked at the top 50 jobs and occupations in demand through Deed, and of the top 50, 45 required an associate's degree or less. 5 required a bachelor's degree. So some of the associate's degree or less are things that are also offered in our high schools, which we think is a beautiful thing. A good example is welding, right? We have many amazing high schools that provide a really nice welding curriculum, and many of those students come to us to continue to grow in that curriculum and then take very high demand jobs in our area. Because of this, every 5 years, we do kind of a program initiation study. We're just beginning that again. I'll give you more information on that in just a moment. But these, what you see on the right, are some of the programs that, because of this demand, we've initiated in the last couple of years. And you can see that they range from everything from computer tech to CNC to medical scribe, meat cutting and butchery. If you ever told me I would spend so much time talking about meat cutting and butchery, I would know. But it is a great job. And the students in 16 weeks come out making $25 an hour in a union job. They have the opportunity to work full-time, opportunities for advancement, and they are thrilled. So these are some of our new programs that are in response to needs in this community. We're a community and technical college. This is not about us getting a bee in our bonnet that, hey, let's just develop an animal science program. We actually do have a certificate. But it's not about our ideas. It's And to be good stewards of those dollars, we have to be able to demonstrate that the dollars are well spent. And I assure you that we can do that. So let me share with you a little bit about CLC. I know that you know CLC, but you may be surprised. This is just an overview of how we're trying to meet that demand. You know we've got 2 locations. I hope you've been to both. Probably not. One is here in Brainerd, and it's a mix of liberal arts and technical education in Brainerd, actually on 2 wings, which is a little weird, and I'm sorry to tell you, one of them does not have air conditioning right now. They are not. True story. It was 83 there. Anyway, it's gonna get better, I promise, it's gonna get better. So that's here in Brainerd. On our Staples, in Staples, we actually have 3 locations. We have our main campus in Staples, which is a lovely small campus dedicated to career and technical education. Then we have 2 other sites, our heavy equipment and maintenance site, which is 360 acres, mostly of something we call a sandbox. Right? So the students are running 80 pieces of equipment. We are largely known in Minnesota State as the largest lab in the state because we have our sandbox. So that's in one site. And then just a mile or 2 away, we have our agriculture and energy center. This is a fully self-sustaining research and demonstration farm. We farm 2,000 acres. So people are often surprised by some of these things, and they're open to every member of the community. As a community college, state funded, these are your sites, and they're where we do our work. Oh, I should have told you this. So I will tell you that on the right, you know, I think, that we also have tremendous partnerships with our high schools. We are one of the largest providers of, you might think of it as college in the schools, is what we call it. It's also known as dual enrollment. It's also known as concurrent enrollment. This is when your students are in high school and they're earning college credit being taught by their high school teacher with a collaborator from Central Lakes College. Over 30 high schools, and it's about 1/3 of our enrollment. It is very significant and is a significant pipeline into all forms of higher education. So that's a huge part of what we do. And then this little pie chart, for those of you on the back, shows you the breakdown of what our students are studying. Despite everything I just talked about, 2/3 of our students are studying in the gray zone, liberal arts, and about 1/3 in career and technical education. Although I will share with you that the growth is in career and technical education. And the students who are studying in the liberal arts are now put on very specific paths, 2 specific majors and then careers. So we are really working hard to decrease the phenomenon, which still occurs, that if you were walking around our campus and you said, "Hi, how are you? What are you studying?" They'll say, "I'm just doing my generals." Oh, okay. Where are you going to transfer? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. We do not believe this is a good thing. It is not. These students tend to be the Hara version, where you just wander through college and you get all these buckets of credits. That is, we're really working hard to change that. So instead of, I'm doing my generals, it's I'm on the psychology transfer pathway. And that allows us to have the conversation, what are you going to do with a degree in psych? Well, you know that here's a few things that you can do with a bachelor's degree, but you probably get a master's. Is that what you want to do? So we can have a really clear conversation about whether that's the right pathway. And we are working on that. We do the work by focusing very powerfully, I believe, on our mission. If you ask any of my extraordinary colleagues about this slide, they would roll their eyes like, if she shows us that pillar thing one more time. This is what grounds us as an institution. I won't go through the whole thing, but I will tell you it's on our website under About. So if you're interested, it's there. But at the very top is our mission. We build futures. That's what we do. That's what we're about. And that's why it has to be about not just getting your generals, not just going to college, but what is the future that you hope to be part of? What will help propel you into upward social mobility? That's what we're about. Our mission, we build futures. And if you come to CLC and you wander around the hallways and you say, what's the mission of this institution? They darn well better say, we build futures. If they don't, I'd like to know their names. They do know, I promise you. The foundation of this are our values, which I won't go through, but we have these specific values because we work so hard to create a unique culture at the college, which puts people and relationships first, our employees and our students. So we work hard to get to know people, make sure everyone has a voice, make sure everyone is included. We do not do it perfectly. It's a constant work in progress, But that is the foundation of what we do, and our hope is that when students come, they know that they're not just a student, they're a person with a face and a name and challenges, and that there are many people there who can help them navigate those challenges. I never want a student to do what I did, which was 5 different institutions. They were great colleges. I can't even really name them, but they were great. So I just hit a bump, and I didn't really, no one knew me, and I didn't know anybody, so I just left and went somewhere else. That can't happen to our students. So we work really hard in that culture. And then these 3 pillars are our strategic plan, that we have to be a college that doesn't just provide opportunities to learn, but truly inspires learning. And I can give you lots of examples of that. We have to advance innovation, and we thought a lot about including probably the most overused word in higher education in our strategic plan. But we decided to use it. Innovation is just thrown out there, but higher education is known to move slowly. Community colleges much more quickly, but still not fast enough. So we decided to name it and say we have to question everything. We have to have new processes, new facilities, not climbing walls, but new things, do things differently, and not be just rooted in tradition, which is important, but can really hold us back. So we work hard to advance innovation. And then transforming lives is how we keep ourselves accountable. We don't just say we do it, we track the number of graduates, who's graduating, what about our different student groups, how many people are being retained. We have to hold ourselves accountable. So this is how we do the work. We also do the work by knowing who we are serving. And this group of people is not who most people believe. So in the middle you see about 5,600 students. Well, most of those students are not on our campuses. At least 1,500 of them are in high schools. So you're probably talking about 3,500 to 4,000 students. And of those students, a large percentage of them come to us with significant challenges. They're from currently and historically marginalized populations, and when I say that, the first thing you'll think is students of color. Yes, it is true. 10% of our students are students of color, and certainly come to us with challenge. But the other types of populations that are currently and historically marginalized are low-income students. And we have many low-income students. We measure them by Pell eligibility in the upper left-hand corner. About 20% of our students, 1 in 5, is Pell eligible. So they fall, they get the maximum grant from the federal government. And they need far, far more, to be honest. And then nearly half of our students in the bottom left, I can't be turning around like that, are first-generation college students, which people are surprised about. And these students come to us with lots of challenges, like they don't know what credits are, or semesters, or FAFSA, or their finals not the same time as your class time. And all of these things that we talk about easily are code. If you don't have someone who can say, now Lori, you really need to go do this. And many of our students don't have that. Collectively, about 70% of our students are considered underrepresented. We're so proud to serve them. But we have to stay focused on it because most of these students are not attending full-time, right? 65% of our students are part-time, which means they're also likely working. So still in this nation, though, if you picture a typical college student, based on what we see in the media or in movies, it's a full-time student living in the dorm, taking 15, maybe more credits with support from home. That's the typical student. That is not our typical student. And I'm very, very glad it's not. So we focus very much on who we are serving. And then we focus on what in the world they need. And these are just a few examples. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if you had told people that it's our responsibility to feed our students, higher education should feed students, higher education would have said, that's not my job. Somebody else will feed them. I'm here to educate them. But thankfully, we've learned that students who don't have food, don't have housing, and as Rosemary said, do not have childcare, cannot learn. They can't. And we know that. So our job is bigger. And that's expensive and hard, but also a tremendous privilege. So recently we opened the Hub Student Needs Center. If you're familiar with the Brainerd campus, it's door number 6. We have 42 doors, all numbered. Please don't look for them all. That was a building with 42 doors. Again, find that song. We don't use them all, I assure you of that. But door number 6, that's where we We serve about 400 students a week. There are no qualifications. You just have to be a student. We don't even check that. You can walk in, Mark, and take some food. I mean, you just, the way it is. There has to be no stigma. We do ask that you push a button on the wall so we can sort of keep track of how many students we're serving. But this came about because of a need at the college and students saying over and over, if I can't study, if I'm hungry, I can't study. If I'm hungry, I can't learn. So 400 students a week. We also have free mental health services and wonderful partners. Our Small Business Development Center is located in the hub, so you can find right there sometimes, which we appreciate. But we also have community partners that come in to help students sign up for SNAP, or to help them find housing, or childcare. It has to be a one-stop shop. And it wasn't always. Our students a couple of years ago said, you know, it's really great that you have all these services, but we are busy people. We cannot run all over this hamster cage of a building. They said that recently. You need to put them all in one place. So thanks to COVID dollars, we were able to do that. So student needs and holistic wraparound support services has increased our cost of serving students. On the upper left, I'll just share, because I'm proud of it, that we've been named a great college to work for the past 4 years. That's important because we want our employees to be happy, but it's more important because we ask them to do so incredibly much. The college cannot do its work unless employees give of themselves and work over and above what is in their job descriptions. So they have to feel supported and included, and then our students feel that too. So that we're very proud of that. And then finally, we have deliberately, there are many, many opportunities for engagement. So whether you're interested in trap shooting or poetry or a club that's marine and power sports, or you want to do global connections, we have it all. And that's not because we just like stuff, but because we know that our students have to be able to connect. If they don't connect, they become a Hara, they leave. And we do not want that. I can't let that happen. So we have amazing employees that have lots of ideas, but we do regular athletics, and you know we have performing arts, and many, many opportunities, over 30 clubs and organizations that are all about creating a sense of belonging for students. Whoever you are, whatever your interest is, you can find a place here. And if you don't, then make your own club. So we have a path for that too. So that's kind of how we do it. The other way we do it is partnership. I stand here to talk to you about the strength and power of a college like CLC, but as I mentioned earlier, we would be nothing. I mean nothing without partners. So every one of our technical programs, as an example, has an advisory committee, and some of you are part of those committees. And we work really hard for that not to be just a place you sit and go, yup, but to listen. What should we change? What is not working? Do you really need a 2-year degree? Maybe that should be a certificate. These are the conversations that happen in our advisory committees. Our partners provide us with incredible equipment. People wander around our campus from particularly other states, but often other colleges, just baffled by the equipment we have. It comes from you. These are donations from business and industry that allow us to train our students on the most cutting-edge equipment. One good example is our nursing program a few years ago partnered with a number of the local health systems with Essentia at the center to bring EPIC, which is, I can't describe EPIC, the patient information system, like? Yeah, he's like, yeah, no. Something like that. So that nurses are being trained on exactly what they need in the hospitals. We can't do that by ourselves. That's conversation to say, can we partner so that we're training people to do what you need them to do? So tons of examples of that. They provide consumables, meaning materials. Cloud stamping, where are you, Cloud? If it were not for cloud stamping, we would have a local program. I'm telling you right now. The steel that you donate is incredible. It allows us to keep costs down. It allows us to keep tuition low. It allows us to do our work. So there are so many examples of partnerships. We also have an amazing CLC foundation. We're one of the largest and longest standing foundations in all of the community colleges in Minnesota State, and our board members are rock stars. I see John, I saw John somewhere, John O'Leary, there's John. Is there anybody else on the board? Brad, of course. How could I forget Brad? And Mike Beardness is on the board. This board cares so much about not typical raising money for scholarships, which the board does beautifully. We distribute $350,000 in scholarships every year, which is amazing, but also helping students have safe housing and contributing to our programs and student success. So those things would not happen without the partnerships on that board, and our students need that support. And then finally, every one of our business partners I shared, and we have some amazing grant funders. I was thinking now of the Initiative Foundation. Don is here. And always, if we're looking to do something, someone will step forward to help us. But recently, with our child care program, the Initiative Foundation can help students who are interested in going into child care, which is a hard one for return on investment, right? We need child care providers. We have to have them. Salaries aren't great, and you are not going to want to take on student debt, right? Well, if they're doing that ROI calculation, it's a tough one to say, I'm going to follow my passion. Through this partnership, they can go to college for childcare debt-free because of the Initiative Foundation, which is phenomenal. Wouldn't be happening without partnership. So if you're interested in helping the college get better and grow, don't be quiet. No, don't be quiet. I love Minnesota, but I was told when I got here, in fact, when I was interviewing, somebody said to me, how is this going to work? You are from the East. You're forward. I went, I am. I said, we are Minnesota nice. How's that going to work? So I spent a lot of time, and I love being in Minnesota. But people really don't want to tell us the bad things. They really are reluctant to say, I really love CLC, but why is that building purple? Or, I really love CLC, but my student did have a very good experience. We need you, because it's your college, to be forward. At the end of this is my cell phone. I just want you to call me. I won't say, that you said this. I won't say Matt Killian called me and said that blank is a mess, but we will fix it. So I need you to help us, please. Partnerships are everything. So is it making an impact? Yeah, it really is. At CLC, we boast about 40,000 graduates in this area, and if you look at any given year, and these are just a couple of examples, almost 100 people will go into law enforcement, close to that in nursing. I think we've got about 74, this was last year, going into diesel and heavy equipment operation, and close to 50 into welding, and that is just a snapshot. The vast majority of those students are right here. In fact, we know that today there are about 18,000 of those students are still working in the state of Minnesota. So we are very proud of our graduates, and while it's easy to look at numbers, really it's faces. We focus on enrollment, we focus on student success, but the saying is that every number has a name behind it, every name has a story. And you don't have to read the stories of Candace and Jess, but Candace is a graphic design student who talked about the value of hard work, building her portfolio, and being ready to enter the workforce. Those are beautiful phrases, and that's what we want a student to know. And then Jess, going into nursing, talked about how she appreciates a small environment where she can get hands-on experience and one-on-one attention. She appreciated the environment of CLC, and that's what helped her be successful. So when we talk about building futures, it's the faces. And if you want evidence of that, tonight we have one of 5 commencement ceremonies. I invite you to come sit on the bleachers with us and be hot. It's so wonderful. It's our favorite time of year. We'll have 150 students walk. This is our career to technical education program. But often, and I encourage it when I do I'm like the MC, the one that no one wants to hear talk, but I'm there emceeing all day. And when we get to the point where we award degrees, diplomas, and certificates, I try to remember to tell the audience, feel free to cheer and move and holler. Because the best thing is when a student crosses the stage and someone says, go Mom, or go Chad, or whatever it is, because then you remember that these are lives. And it takes people who care to support these students so that they can come into our economy. Okay, so the other pieces of impact, there's more information about this, but I won't spend time on this. How are we doing on time, Allison? What is that?
Time, it's 9 o'clock.
Oh, it's 9 o'clock, okay. So it's great for me to talk about, yes, we do good things. Yay, you can just take my word for it. But last year, we contracted a study, the whole state of Minnesota did, to ask the question, what is the return on investment of an institution like CLC, because our budget's about 40 million, about that. And a little over half comes from state allocation. That's a very significant investment from you, it's taxpayers. So when I talk about being good stewards of resources, we take that very seriously. So what is the impact annually? So this organization came in and studied all of the institutions. And annually, this is a new study, we contribute $198 million to the local economy. And that's both direct and indirect, but significant. So it is a good return on investment. Another $16 million in state and local revenue, so paying taxes at both the state and the federal level. You can see we support almost 1,500 jobs. And the one I really like is the 16.5, because I'm very skeptical of statistics. You know, we can make them say nearly anything we want. This is where our alumni contribute annually to the economy. So when I first saw it, I was like, that's ridiculous, because, you know, if Matt Gillian went to school at Central Lakes College and you include him in this, well, how do you know that the number that you include is the value of CLC? I mean, he has value in himself, right? But what they did is they pulled out all of the value that, man, I'm so sorry, this is going down a rabbit hole. that Matt had on his own. And this only includes the incremental difference that is earning power with that new degree. $66 million of our alumni. And again, there are 18,000 of them still working. And then I'm very proud of the fact that in this community, as you're sitting here, you're proof that we give back. We carry our float. And that grassroots piece, right? That we try very hard to infuse that in our students. So the last number here, that $2.8 million people stand up there, is what comes from volunteerism and donations. $2.8 million a year. It's about $350,000 in cash. The rest are volunteer hours. Programs that are at Camp Ripley cleaning up. We just had a 5K. I mean, there are, for mental health. There are so many examples. Students working at Camp Confidence, football players reading in the elementary schools. There are so many examples of getting students into the community. Our hope is that they get the degree they need to have the job they want and that they stay right here. And we believe that part of that is getting them involved in this wonderful community. So yes, we're proud of the impact we're making, but we can certainly be better. So I talked to you about all the different places in history where there was a need and higher education responded. All of these inflection points. And I alluded to there being a big one coming up. Now, what's triggering this inflection point is nothing like a war, thank goodness. It's a whole bunch of things coming together post-pandemic that create almost a perfect storm. And it's a big storm, and it's coming. And I will tell you, not all institutions will survive. We will, but not all institutions will survive. The first thing comes back to enrollment, because even if you're not a state-funded institution, you still need enrollment. At CLC, I said we're 50%, a little more than 50% state allocation. The other 50% comes from tuition. So we need students. If you're a private institution and you get no state allocation, it's all tuition. So you still need students enrolled. We are hitting what is known as, widely known, nationally, as the demographic cliff. So in 2026, this teensy little graph says that in 2025, 2026, the number of high school graduates will peak. And then after that, it will fall. And this is because during the recession in 2009, the birth rate fell. So we've been talking about it since then. We've been saying, 17 years from now, we're in big trouble because we're not going to have a lot of high schools. And here we are, 17 years from now in 2026. And between 2026 and 2030, we will lose 15% of our high school graduates. That is that's the bottom falling out. It is incredibly disruptive. Can we weather it? Of course we can weather it, but we have to change. We have to be way better at keeping the students who come to the college. All of us have to do that. We're working hard on it. We have to be far better at finding adults in our community, because there's a very large percentage of particularly males in our community who are neither engaged in the workforce nor are they engaged in higher education, and we have to get them to come back to school. It's hard. They're not like students graduating from high school, but we have to be better at finding adult learners. When we get them, they do extraordinarily well, but it's hard to find them. So we have to be better at that. We also have a significant problem around equity and access and success. And I told you that when we look at equity, and again, I know it's a hot button word, but we're talking about gaps in student achievement across all student groups. For CLC, it's significant. When you look at students of color compared to white students, they do not succeed at the same rate. Similarly, Pell-eligible students compared to high-income students do not succeed at the same rate, but the same thing with first gen. Because we need every one of these students to be successful, to graduate, to come take jobs, we can't ignore this. We need them. We need them in this community. So we are investing very heavily in closing those achievement gaps. But they're not new achievement gaps. They've been there for since probably the beginning of that history of higher education. And now we've got to figure out a way to close them. Otherwise, we won't meet the needs of our communities economically, and we won't do what's right for students. So this is a huge lift that all colleges will have to face. We're also entering this term, and sometimes people call it the digital age, and some people call it the information age. Well, both seem kind of like, haven't we been there for a long time? Yes, we have, but something happened during the pandemic. And that is that pre-pandemic, people were very skeptical of remote learning and remote working. Things have changed. Now there is a demand for remote learning, and there's a demand for remote working. I have a daughter who works remotely for the University of Minnesota. She's the hardest working person I know, and when she told me she wanted a remote job for a lot of reasons, she had asked me that question 5 years ago. I would have said, good luck. I mean, a remote job, what is that? I mean, I just don't. Now, very common. And we lose candidates all the time because we don't offer full telework. So this digital age is very problematic for us. We have to figure out how to embrace it in some way because we will not get anywhere by saying, we're just not going to do much of that. At CLC, about 25% of our courses have some form of online learning, meaning they can be fully online, hybrid, high flex. About 25%. We will never become a college that's fully online. We can't do that. Our students don't want it. You can't learn to repair cars that way. So we're not worried about that transition. Some colleges are. It's more about how do we embrace it and leverage it. The digital age also includes AI, so artificial intelligence, and virtual reality. So I'm sure you've all heard of ChatGPT, right, by OpenAI. How many of you played with it? Pretty incredible. Is it not? It's incredible. So there are two, and those of you who have not, it's all free. You can just get on there and say, so what did I try this morning? I tried, tell me about the Brainerd Economic Development Corporation, write an essay. And in seconds. I knew not only, of course I knew, but what the organization did and the key points of the strategic plan. It's incredible. I said, write me a play about dogs. In seconds, I had here characters, Lacey is a Labrador, blah, 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 and there was dialogue. So now we have to face, what do we do? Of course, what our faculty said, you cannot use that, do not use that. It is not, it's cheating, you cannot use that. It makes them very nervous, of course it does. But we're not going to get anywhere by talking like that. It reminds me of spell check. Do you remember, for those of you of the age, when spell check came out, we were like, spell check? You should know how to spell on your own. You know, and they really said a few years ago, spell check. Now we have Grammarly, right? And we have to embrace these things, but figure out how to make the education stronger. AI is going to change the world because people do not understand, I don't understand the power that it has, both in generating content and text, but being creative. It is the weirdest thing I've experienced. So I get weirded out. I go on probably a couple times a week and just throw something in there and go, ooh. And I just go, no, I'm done now. I just can't. We have to figure it out. So the digital age will change who we are, what we do, and how we do it. And we've got to figure that out. And then the last thing is that it used to be that when you posted a job, and you're the expert, so tell me if I'm wrong, I'll talk about the college. We would always say, we're we're looking for a master's degree in so-and-so. It was the credential. It was the degree. It was what it symbolized because we knew it was transferable. That is no longer the case. We're moving into what we know as a skills-based economy. So we fully expect, and it's happening already, that people will say, I want someone who has these skills. I don't care what your degree is. I don't care. Some of you might, but many, more and more, we're seeing that. And colleges who dig their heels and say, I only do associate's degrees, for example, will fail. There is no question about it because employers will hire students before that degree. It will be the kiss of death for many institutions. Community colleges are well positioned. We do lots of short-term certificates. We are doing more of them. These little credentials or certifications or micro-credentials, we have to accelerate them, but it will change the face of higher education. And I think people are scared because that is different. Okay, so I would say that as we navigate these things, I mentioned to you that we need your help. Not just telling us the good, the bad, and the ugly, but being very forward in what you need. We are beginning our new program initiation process, which about every 5 years, we try to figure out, because it takes a while to develop a new program. I mean, I said we're nimble, but we're not that good. It takes a while. So we want to get ahead of it. And we will look, last time we talked to the chamber, and we sent out a survey. They're all chamber members. We put it out on social media. We're asking the question, what program should we be developing? How can we better meet your needs? You're the first to see. No one's in there except you. So, if you are interested, use your phone, do the little QR code thing, and please give us as much feedback as you possibly can. This will happen all the way through the fall semester. Then we'll, of course, look at all the labor market data because our goal is what do you think is out there? What is in demand? What are the jobs like? Do they pay a living wage? Are students interested? And those that rise to the top, we will develop those new programs. So we need your help because this is your college. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop because Allison's about to hold up another piece of paper, I'm imagining. I couldn't read the first one, I'm so sorry. But please know again how important all of you are to the work that we do. We're really privileged to do the work, very, very privileged. And I hope that you'll have an opportunity at some point to see some of these students being successful because days like tonight, 5 o'clock tonight and tomorrow, we have 5 ceremonies, did I tell you that? They fill our buckets. That's why when I get so tired developing policy, which I hate, I think, remember Jess on the screen? That's why we're doing this. So please, if you ever have time, come help celebrate students with us. They are truly extraordinary human beings. Okay, what questions do you have? Should I run this over to you?
Well, that's right, I'll let you go.
Oh, great!
Got a question on that 127 calculation. And is that, and you might have said it, is that based on the needs of business?
Yes.
127? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's been out there. So the question is that 1-to-7 ratio, is it based on the needs of the businesses or is it based on other needs? When it came out about 15 years ago, honestly, I didn't think it would hold true today, but a recent study says it's pretty darn true. And it's based on the needs in the local economies. Does it shift a bit? Sure. I mean, if you went to a major technical hub, so my brother lives in Boston, they need more degrees here. There's no question about that. So I think it shifts depending on the community, but generally speaking, it's simply the recognition that when we look at the economy, we need people who have truly advanced skills, some people in the middle, and then we need people who do tremendous skilled work. And that has held true for many, many years.
Is there a way to measure that? Is there a measurement out there?
No, not locally and not easily. So what we did, the closest that we could do is analyze deed data for our particular area. And there are people who are far more qualified than our staff to do this. But that's what they did. They looked at the high demand jobs, the last 50. And I said, I want to know how the top 50, how many of them require an advanced degree, how many require a bachelor's degree, how many associate's degree or less. And what he came up with was actually, it's shifted in our area, right? We require more at the associate's degree and technical level than do some other communities. and it probably changes from year to year, but in general, 127. Thank you. Yes, sir?
What is your collaboration with public schools as far as guidance counselors, junior high and so forth, along the lines of career development?
So the question is, actually, you probably heard it because it's what you asked. So, what's our collaboration with high schools in terms of career development? You know, I think two things. One, our college in the schools program is very helpful because students know, many students, thousands of students know that they're connected to Central Lakes College. We try very hard to have faculty in specific areas form relationships with the high school faculty and do things together to help students choose careers in that field. It works really well in career and technical education because our welding, I mentioned welding, our welding faculty member is in the high schools and they know the welding teachers. We're just rejuvenating our machine tool program, and we have tasks. That faculty member would go in the high schools so that you're talking to the teachers. So we're doing that so that students understand that career path. I think we do it very well in career tech ed. It's very challenging for students who want to get the AA degree and then transfer. The truth is that we have amazing partnerships with high schools, but our guidance counselors and teachers are members of society, and they typically they're often sending students to the 4-year without a whole lot of analysis. So we're working on that by bringing together guidance counselors and teachers to the college every year and have these conversations. We've got a long way to go, but I will tell you that despite the fact that our philosophies are not always the same, our high schools do an extraordinary job, and they are absolutely interested in partnering and doing what's right for students. So we only have opportunity. But thank you, good question. What else?
Hara,
Dave?
good job.
Thanks.
So I'd be interested in knowing what the average tenure is of all your instructors, and then are you having a challenge finding instructors, especially as you develop all these additional certificates? And then is there a trend toward less traditional full-time employees of the college and more towards people in the community that come in to teach courses?
I'm really glad you asked that question, Dave, because I wanted to talk about Mike and how he saved our bacon last year. We are seeing significant turnover, and it's happening, I know, across your companies as well. Higher education is seeing it, and we thought we were just special, and it wasn't going to happen, and it did. So I think we're experiencing a lot less than some of our sister institutions, but interestingly, I can't tell you the average tenure of our faculty. That's what I'm trying to think about. We have a very high retention of faculty, primarily because we have one of the strongest unions in the country. So once a faculty member is a full-time faculty member, we don't lose them. We really don't. I would say that the hardest ones to get and keep are the ones in career and technical education programs, because we cannot pay an individual the same as a private industry will be able to pay them. So they have to come to us with a passion and a willingness to take a pay cut, which is a very hard thing to do. And of course, we sell budget funds. You get summers off, it's just a very hard sell. So in career and technical education, the turnover has churned more than in the liberal arts. The place that we see tremendous churn right now, in my word, tremendous, but not compared to my sister institutions, is in administration. And we aren't administration heavy, but I will tell you through the pandemic, the administrators just, it was hard. They bore the burden, right? They didn't go online, they were just here. So we've had some turnover, and we have lost administrators specifically to fully remote positions, specifically. Often to state agencies that will fully remote, bigger salary, and you're home. We can't offer that, and we won't offer it because we need to have vital campuses. We'll offer you 1 day a week, but that's not the same thing. So we were hiring a vice president of HR, was it last year, Mike? And when I talked to my colleagues across the system of Minnesota State, we realized there were 7 open positions for directors and VPs of human resources. 3 had failed their searches. no applicants. So we called Mike. And I think what we have going for us is the area. Often, and we have people like Mike who are willing to talk to candidates and say, do you really want to be here? Why do you want to be here? Like, let's see if this is a good fit for you. And we had he was able to, I think we would still have no HR director if it were not for the executive recruiting program here at BLAEDC. So thank you very much for that, Mike, really, and to BLAEDC. So I'm sorry I can't give you average tenure, but we are feeling it, certainly. We are pulling in more people from the community who can teach in our courses. There's no question about that. A good example is in our natural resources program right now. We just brought in 3 more. So we're seeing a lot of that. There is a fairly high number of part-time faculty members that are interested in teaching a course or 2. Most of those people really want a full-time faculty member position eventually, and they're doing it to see if this is a good fit, get to those people, and then we post a full-time position. It's a really nice thing. So, good question, but we've had much more turnover than we would like to see.
St. Paul.
What's going on in St. Paul? I don't know. So, the government relations team at Minnesota State said, and I know we all have opinions about how things should go when institutions like ours go to go and ask for dollars. But the government relations team, and we don't advocate for CLC only, we go as a system. He said it does not get any better than this. Things have really shifted with the current control, and I think now things are on the governor's desk, but what I'm reading and hearing is that there is a measure for free college. I'm sure we have all sorts of feelings about that. Below income, family income of $80,000. As well as a tuition freeze, which is a good thing for our students, to be honest, and significant dollars coming to the college that we need. The challenge, so it's the best budget we've ever seen in my time here. The challenge is that we also have 4 wonderful unions on campus and 6 wonderful unions in the system, maybe it's 7. And with a surplus, the way it is, those bodies, very understandably, are asking for very significant increases. So I've been very clear. Hanky, don't put this on TV.
I turned it off.
I've been very clear. Just saying, it's a great budget, but if you get what you're asking for, we're in layoff. So we try to be very transparent. But budgetarily, it's good. There's a lot of support, I think, for public education right now. And I think we're hearing nationally more and more conversation about community colleges, which is good for us. You didn't ask this, but we did just hire a new chancellor. And I have to tell you, I'm thrilled with the choice. This is someone we know, he knows us, super student focused, been on a campus. Scott Olson will be wonderful. So I don't know, I have my evaluation in June. I'll let you know. Oh, now Allison's standing up.
Sorry.
That's okay, I'm done. All right. Please feel free to use the contact information. Please, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much, Hara. Just another round of applause. Thank you so much. So we will, if it's okay with Hara, we will share your slides, if that's all right. Yeah, so we can, everybody that you registered, most of you registered using your email, so we can certainly share those if folks would like to have that type of data. I know it's important for us to have that. I mean, numbers is our world, so to be able to share some of that economic impact data is vitally important to us. So we're really thankful to be able to have that information. So one last thing on all the tables, as all of you know, a few years ago we changed the way we deliver our annual report. So the QR code on those placards on your tables will bring you to our annual report. So otherwise you can go to our website and find that. It's just a little more challenging to find it on our website, but we like people messing around on our site. So it takes you a little time, so it's kind of a treasure hunt. But you can click on that QR code, that'll bring you to our annual report. So lastly, thank you all for coming this morning. I'm very, very happy that all of you decided to take some time with us today and hear from Hara and talk about all the things that are happening here in our communities, which is fantastic. And Thanks to Rosemary for providing an update from the county. And outside of that, I want to thank my board and our staff for putting this together, and thank the Woods for hosting us today. This has been fantastic. And thanks to Hanky from Lakeland TV for coming out, doing some interviews and filming a lot of this. I'm sure for those of you that watch PBS, I'm sure we're going to get some great airtime, right?
Oh, absolutely.
By the way, his office is next to ours, so we have a little bit of influence. But anyway, so thank you all very much. Have a great day.